Let's go. Hold on. Let me remove the YouTube one. The YouTube is going on. Oh, yeah, Facebook. When we finish, I'll set the Facebook out.
As usual, you're having a wonderful time, especially those of you who live in the UK. What have I got in today's program? What is going on in Burkina Faso? What is going on in Burkina Faso? In 2022, a young military officer, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, took power in Burkina Faso. Unlike other military coups in Africa, which often come in because of bad governance by governments in power, he said his goal was to free his country of the crutches of Western imperialism and new colonialism. This is very different from other African coups. 3 years down the line, the question is he succeeding? He has ditched former colonial power, France, in favor of a strong alliance with Russia and China, adopting a left-wing economical policy. Is it working? Amid its demonstrations both in Africa and Western capitals supporting him, this is, by the way, less than a week or so ago, what has he made Africa's most popular serving? What has made him Africa's most popular serving president at the moment? These and many other questions will be answered in today's program. With me in the studio is Professor Sahidi Maman Bilan, a lecturer at the University in South London, in London. Welcome to the program.
Good evening.
Yes, you've had that intro. Ibrahim Traoré, why is he popular? Yet he hasn't stayed in power for more than 3 months, for more than 3 years, and he hasn't achieved really that much. But is such a popular character, and is it what he says? It is what has he done to get all this popularity?
This is a legitimate question and very interesting because whoever knows the African politics, you can see in Ibrahim Traoré someone who stands out. He's a unique. His type of governing of leading is really unique. First of all, he's very young. He's
that's 37 years old. Yeah.
So the second, youngest president in the world.
Yeah.
And secondly, he's really honest and someone who genuinely wants to free his country.
Yeah.
And he wants to get rid of the terrorism, which has taken the whole region basically.
Yeah. Okay.
So he came with a completely different style of governing and leading. Which is welcomed by the young population.
Okay.
So, and in the whole region, that's the reason why everyone likes him.
Yeah, but the thing is maybe because he's a youth, they achieve, because we normally tend to think of people coming in and achieve and being praised for their achievements. Achievements speak louder than the words. But he hasn't reached that level yet.
No, he did, because in a few years, I think in 2-3 years, what he achieved, none of the serving president has achieved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Why? Because he, first of all, he's patriotic. He likes his country.
Yeah.
He's very proud to be an African.
Yeah, of course.
And also, he's very humble and a very honest person who, for example, did not come in order to make money, no. He didn't even say he doesn't want any additional money apart from his salary.
The salary
as a captain.
Yeah.
So this is unique.
Okay. He said this during an African head of summit in Russia. He told African leaders, stop behaving like puppets who dance every time the imperialists pull the strings. This hasn't made him popular with African heads of state. And people have a feeling that it could backfire if things go wrong, when suddenly the other leaders are saying, hang on a minute, you called us puppets.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think this shows his vision of politics and what African politics should be. Not to be determined by others, not to be expecting anything from others, but to count on ourselves, not to use our resources. And I can say this, even a cry of sovereignty. So he wants a political autonomy for Africa. And for example, he said that we don't need the IMF, We don't need the World Bank and or Europe or even any other country not to know how to feed our people. So we can count on ourselves to to build a better place, a better society.
Ironically, you're talking about the IMF, and he has already told the IMF and the World Bank. Of course, he's told them off. But in a statement released by IMF and the World Bank in April, that despite all the challenges that he has had in terms of humanization, security, he has managed to raise domestic revenue and contain the public wage bill, increasing spending on education and health and others. He's managed to do this despite the fact that there isn't really much money coming into the country. What is he doing right that even IMF now is admitting that he has done very well despite the fact that they haven't sold much, they haven't done much? What is that so, others are not doing right?
This is a proof, a tangible proof that something can be done differently.
In Africa.
In Africa. And he showed also that we don't need any development aid. He refused any development aid. And relied on the internal resources and motivating people. Even the poor people are contributing. So he mobilized all this, and all people who embezzled money, for example, who stole money, he managed to get that money back. And still that money is coming back. And now they have institutes, some plants, processing plants, for example, for tomatoes. The gold, the mining gold, and all this are now nationalized. So he's showing that it is possible. You don't need to rely on anyone else.
But the thing is the toughness that comes with that. Is it because some people, we're trying to look at his DNA now? Thomas Sankara and the others have, of course, these things happened, and we lost all of them because of the toughness which they would try to portray. But I'm trying to look at it and say, this thing comes from, is it the DNA of the Bukinabi people like you, or is it coming from, there has to be somewhere. Is it partly education, partly, where does it come from? Because, of course, there are other African leaders who could easily do what he does. But why not follow into that sort of path where corruption is, and you personalize things and you become a head of state, and suddenly everything is in your door, is at your doorstep? Where does this, could this be coming from the DNAs of the Bukinabi people?
I would say that because internally, because he's an honest person, someone who is very humble, and someone who knows where he's coming from, someone who has accumulated a lot of frustration because he's a military officer. So he has been on ground. He saw what's going on, how the suffering of people is. So he just got fed up of it. He wanted to finish it, and he is really deeply convinced that he can change the situation. So instead of acting like other African presidents, state of presidents, who do not take initiatives, so he really, showed that he can do things differently.
Now,
and it's working.
The media, Western media, and obviously some African media that I've been reading, have also stated that at some point he hasn't fulfilled his commitment. He had said that within a year he will end the war, the war that is happening in the country, the bandits that he's been fighting over the years. This is one area. The pledge hasn't worked. Secondly, is that with the opposition that he has had over sending some of the people who are opposed to him to the front line, this has been another issue that humanitarian groups have been pointing out here in London and other parts of the world, that it was unfair for somebody who challenges you to send him to the front line. How do you view this then?
I think you need to differentiate. You need to differentiate because he has been on the ground. What he achieved in 1 and 2 years' time, in cooperation with the IS. So Sahel African states, Niger and Mali, none of the served president has achieved it in 5 or 10 years. He managed to reduce terrorism, or to free, let's say, to free the country, his country, which was occupied. More than 80% of the country was occupied.
But when he came to power?
When he came to power, he mobilized the internal resources to get military equipment, and he managed now to free more than 80% of the country, which shows that something is going in the right direction.
Yeah, but the question of also sending people who have, there was a doctor who was sent on the front line because he had criticized the tactics. Yeah. Then there was, I think, a couple of students as well. This doesn't work very well. I mean, if I criticize you and suddenly I'm on the front line tomorrow, would this work as an issue of success?
No, I think we need to see it in context. We need to see it in context. Yeah. What's going on is that the Burkina Faso, like Niger and Mali, are in a state of war.
Okay.
It's a generalized war.
Yeah, yeah.
So criticism
is Islamic bandits that want to take.
They're even not Islamists, to be honest. They're just terrorists who are motivated from external forces. They have external forces which push them to do what they're doing.
Okay.
So in such a context, some criticism are not acceptable at all. For them to demoralize, the military, which is on the ground and doing the job, it's easy to criticize than to do something.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I think he acted like that.
Yeah, but okay, I wouldn't really go into so much of that. An American general, Michel Langley, criticized him, and he said that something to do with the gold reserves that the country has, and this is somewhere they say the money is being, I don't know whether the American general has any proof at all of the money going into different areas to help the junta rather than to help the country as a whole. This is what the Americans are saying. What do you think of this? Because it's not verified by the Americans, but they claim to have a verification of that.
They don't have any proof. And on the other hand, I would even ask myself, what's the problem? They have a policy which says America again, making America great again. So they don't want any interference in the internal affairs. Why do they look into what these Bukinabi are doing? If that can help to free the country, to acquire military equipment to free the country, I don't see the problem, honestly. Because no one will go to Americans and tell them how they should lead the country or how to mobilize the resources.
Of course not,
So I understand the part of the views, because what they used to get for free has been now stopped. So that's the main point, actually.
The relationship with Sierra Leone, with the Ivory Coast, this is becoming an issue as well, because most of the things which are happening have been happening in Ivory Coast. And Ivory Coast used to be a very good neighbor and a very good, could there be Bukinabis in Ivory Coast who are part of this? Because all the attempted coups and everything that has happened is happening from Ivory Coast.
Okay, there are a lot of political interferences. We know that Alassane Ouattara, the Sovereign President of Ivory Coast, is a very close alliance, in close alliance with France and America. And France is present in Ivory Coast, like America as well. They have a basis there. So obviously, we know that all the West, so these Western countries were plotting against those countries because they separated, they distanced themselves from all, the Western political orientation. Now they're seizing what they call the multipolarity, because we have, countries like Russia, China, and Iran are merging. They are in direct cooperation with them. So that's the way they even try to acquire equipment. Just look, despite all the resources they have, despite what the countries are going through, terrorism, they could not acquire military equipment from France or America without permission.
Of course,
While the terrorists are very well equipped. So that's a contradiction. It's not understandable. So
the question is, who is funding them?
According to, I don't have proof, but what is being said is that France has been caught red-handed equipping those terrorists and training them.
Yeah.
I don't have any proof, but that's what is being said.
Because you wonder where they get the funds from, where they get the arms from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So can you imagine? France, America have been in that region for the last, I think, they stayed at 12 years or 14 years. But terrorism has increased.
Yeah, over the years. Instead of coming down. Yeah.
But these people, since they left, now they are more or less in control because they synergize the effort. You know, Burkina Faso, Mali, and the Niger work together to, you know, to mutualize the efforts and the equipment, and they are, you know, managing to contact, you know, to fight these terrorists.
Okay. When we mentioned, because the last time when we had this conversation, these three juntas, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, the kind of joint effort that has been done by these heads of state, and how they are trying to come together to not only just to fight the West, but to improve the standards of living in their countries and so on. That sort of the kind of relationship that they have to even run away from ECOWAS, so that we're going to get our own, and this is what we plan to do. When you look at it from the outside point of view, as we are thinking, okay, how are they going to succeed in this kind of way? Where is because the key thing in Africa has always been, where is the money going to come from? Where is this one going to come from? What are they going to do? Do we look at another power behind? Do we look at China? Do we look at Iran? Do we see someone else coming in and saying, hey, hang on a minute, I'm going to help you, but this is what you have to do for me as well? Because it's that kind of thing which has been damaging Africa. Somebody puts his hand here, but underneath the hand there's something else. Is that happening within these three states?
Well, if my reading of it, of the situation is completely different. Because I think they are very well aware of a fact that who controls, who gives you food, who feeds you, controls you.
Exactly.
So they are very well aware of that. And they understood also that individually, in isolation, they cannot fight this terrorism.
They can't survive.
So this is a survival strategy which consists of coming together to synergize the effort and fight with the, you know, the resources they have. Africa is not that poor as it is portrayed. Can you imagine? Niger is the biggest country for them in that region, but Niger is portrayed as the poorest country on earth, which is not true.
With all the gold,
so they have, they have gold, they have uranium, they have all the resources you can imagine. So why do they not? Why can't they not take the resources and to, you know, to free themselves and to show that they are capable of doing the job? And that's what's going on
now.
But many people think that Russia, you know, is manipulating them. I don't think Russia is dictating things, because these three countries are rested on three principles. One is sovereignty. Secondly, they said any agreement they want to go through, they need to consider first the interest of the people. And that they're free also to get in partnership with anyone who they think can help them, which they didn't get before. So that's why all this is happening. They try not to create all issues, all possible problems to these countries.
Why make...
but they're not against the West. That's not true. Whoever says that is not correct.
Why this particular journey without the rest of Africa, without other African countries saying, hang on a minute, that's what we've been waiting for, can we join you? The youth in Kenya, and I think even in Tanzania, when I was speaking to one Kenyan, he was telling me, what have we been waiting for? These are the kind of people we've been wanting. But it seems that other African heads of state are looking behind them, and I said, no, I don't think that will work for me. Why isn't this... because even the OAU, Nigeria, for example, is far much against that. Ghana, the head of state was a bit, a bit sort of reserved as far as that is concerned. Then, of course, there are others like Ivory Coast, of course, I can't mention that. And then, of course, Liberia and the others. They don't seem to have a huge following with somebody from all these countries that are saying, I mean, it's the youth who are jumping in now with all the demonstrations that we have seen. They're saying, hey, leave that man alone. Why isn't African heads of state following into, coming up to shake his hands and being behind him?
Because these three countries or these three leaders have the gut, or they did have the gut to show that a different way is possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Most of them are very well aware of the challenges that they're facing.
Okay.
They suffer in silence, but they're afraid of losing power.
Yeah.
Because most of them did not come into power in the right way.
Yeah, yeah. By
so
voting,
rig elections.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why.
Yeah.
And I know also that some got into power because they have been supported by certain Western countries.
Yeah, the Western.
So if you don't do what we want, we'll stop you here.
We'll begin something that will end your presidency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the reason behind all this.
Yeah. The media has played such a crucial role in all that is going on. And we are looking at the media as something that will probably transform the knowledge of Africans about Africa itself. And I think he has played with the media, with the social media so well that it has reached a certain level. But it has come to such a way that internet or Facebook or any of these other major things may suddenly start to go wrong, which have been part of this promotion. Can this help this region if we don't really have the powers of the media houses?
I think we need to acknowledge and recognize also that there is a general awareness, raising awareness in Africa.
Okay.
And the people who are suffering are younger people.
Yeah.
And as you know, more than 80% of the population are young.
Yeah.
So they feel, the suffering in the skin.
Yeah.
Because on daily basis.
Yeah.
As things they can see the parents are out of jobs, or even people who don't even have something to feed themselves. So is there a complete tiredness of the situation? So people want to change things.
Yeah.
Why should many African young people die in the sea, for example, by trying to come over
to Europe?
While they have all the resources they need.
Yeah.
So through the social media, through the information technologies, they come to realize that actually they're not poor as it is portrayed.
As it is,
So they can mobilize the internal resources and get a better life here instead of going out.
Yeah.
So I think that trend will be very difficult to stop.
Yeah.
On the contrary, this will increase. And the more pressure the external forces put on those countries, the more motivation, the more determination
coming from the youth.
Absolutely.
And others. The thing is that the worst part of it is that when we look at the other African heads of state who have seen him come up, for example, there were a lot of comment when he went to Ghana.
Yes.
He had his gun with him.
Yes.
He went at the room. People were saying, how can he come at an event like this?
With a gun.
With a gun and so on. He's the head of state, for God's sake. We know he has the security and everything.
Yes.
Why suddenly is he appearing the way he has appeared? And but that's the man's style.
Yeah.
That's his style. And the youth in Ghana and everywhere where they're liking.
Absolutely.
The man, if he comes with his gun, he had something. This is who I am. I'm a military man. I've come. I've endorsed the man who has just been elected. At the end of the day, that's how we wanted to appear.
That's true.
But again, people are looking at it from that angle. Other African heads of state who are commenting on that. Do we really need such a character at the African Union? Do we need a person of this caliber to be among us? That kind of thing which we are seeing. Could this at some point in future be part of his downfall in a way?
I think the more pressure they will try to put on him, or any effort to isolate that person, will produce the contrary effect.
The opposite of it.
Yes. Why? Because he's really young.
Yeah.
He's full of energy. And he has a vision which many people share.
To bring out.
So genuinely he wants to free his country. genuinely, he's not against the West, but he just wants a different way of working together. A win-win situation, that's it. So I understand the other, Africans head of states, only God knows in hidden what they think, what they say to each other. But I know, I'm very confident that in future, this can bring more, many countries will join them, believe me, because the young people are determined, really to free themselves and to get out of all these situations.
Now, the words he used at the beginning when we took over power, he said he wants to free his country of the crutches of Western imperialism and new colonialism. These are words used by Osajiko, Dr. Osajiko Kwame Nkrumah, at some point when he was president of Ghana. And he fought so much for that. Of course, we know the outcome of what happened to Nkrumah. And several other African leaders, obviously, Lumumba and others have come up, and the new colonialism and that kind of thing. And Nkrumah wrote actually almost an entire book about it. They're looking at the coming back of the return to the 60s of those who were fighting against that. And not saying that, as you are saying, that we want what is in our interest and the partnership. But they're not looking at it from that angle. They're looking at it from the side of a lose-lose-lose. They are going to be the ones losing, And they will fight this up to the end. That's what the kind of things that we have in mind, and that's why there have been coups and so on to try and get him out of the way. How do you see him changing at all at some point in future?
I don't think he will change in the way they want him to change. I don't think so. On the contrary, they even attempted 19 times to kill him. But they didn't succeed. And this did not change his views. He's convinced that what he wants, he's doing the right things. So it's a commitment to the right case, the right case and the right cause for his country and for Africa. And I think he's fully aware of all the challenges and the dangers of his commitment and what he wants to achieve. Not only him, but all other these Sahel countries.
The three countries.
So, but they are engaged in that direction. They are already in that direction. I don't think they can come back. No.
The diaspora, like here in the UK, in America and others, there were demonstrations of his to support him and telling the West to leave him alone. And we are looking at that as a major issue, not just here in the UK, but throughout the whole world, in a sense that, Africans, the diaspora, have been sitting down and have been waiting for such a character to come up. Do you see the diaspora playing a part in Burkina Faso? Because at one point he said he would rather have somebody who has studied in Burkina Faso than having somebody who has studied abroad, because your mindset is different.
Completely different.
You have the Harvard, Oxford, and so on ideas which are not working in Africa. Do you see him embracing the diaspora?
I think so. He's
with the kind of mindset he has, anyway.
Yes, but to be honest, it's exaggerated to say that. Fact is that the diaspora is contributing a lot to raise awareness, and also to help the politics in those countries. Just to give you examples, I know that the Bukinabi community here in the UK, in London, for example, they organize various events, conferences, and symposiums to explain the reasons why they opted for that direction. So I think they're contributing a lot. And also, even financially, the contribution of the diaspora to those countries is something substantial which cannot be denied. So I will understand on the other side that, most of intellectuals are alienated, so they're corrupt, morally corrupt, or trying to imitate the way of life in the West.
Than the way of life in Africa.
Yes, I would understand that this is not the right way of doing things. But this trend, for me, the way I see it, promoting honesty, dignity, and engaging for the promotion of freedom and the sovereignty I think that's very positive, and this will even help the West. Why?
In which way?
For example, all these asylum seekers coming here to claim, asylum.
Okay.
They would not need that one. They will stay in the countries because they will have job to do. Education will be, there. This may even, drop down, the terrorism, because many people who engage in that, because they don't have alternatives, maybe. That's why they engage in that violent, direction.
Yeah, there are no jobs. There are no jobs. Yeah.
So we can create jobs and education. So this can only be done if internal resources have been mobilized and really, put to help people.
Okay. Now, we see him speaking very good English.
Yeah.
And is this part of AI rather than him speaking that certain things which are, are we looking at AI speaking rather than him actually speaking?
No, he's he's fluent in French.
Okay.
I have never heard him speaking English. Maybe it's a translation or that.
Yeah.
But fact is that he has a rhetorics. His rhetorics is very good.
Oh, yeah.
And he can come at a level where everyone understands him. And he was a brilliant, student as well.
Okay.
When he was at university. So he's a very bright young man who knows what he wants. And I would even say that he read a lot.
Yeah, it's been reading quite a lot.
So he really is fully aware of what's going on. And don't forget also that tradition, Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, and Sekou Touré, and all this tradition, I think he accumulated.
He's been accumulating that over a period of time.
Absolutely.
The question now becomes those around him.
Yeah.
Because that's what affected Thomas Sankara.
Yes.
The
betrayal,
the betrayal didn't come from, it came from within somebody who never believed in his vision.
It's true.
Yeah. Although he has to educate the people in his vision to get that vision into place.
Yeah.
Because like now we're having that issue in Africa. That vision is not translated to others.
It's true.
You see, they know that vision is there, but they don't want to take the same route.
But I think in Burkina Faso, what's going on right now, if you look closely, people really bought into his ideas. They accepted. And I don't think anyone can come afterwards with coup d'etat and just put him away and take power.
Okay.
That person will not succeed.
Okay. How about the vision? Even if she's gone tomorrow, will that vision be maintained by somebody else? Because that's a key word. That's a key thing.
I think so. Why? Because you take the case of Thomas Sankara, for instance. They killed him believing that, with his death is finished. Yeah. But suddenly he's even more virulent than Thomas Sankara.
It's come up very, the issue of Russia, the alliance with Russia is a major issue now.
For the West, yes.
Yeah. For the West, not for him, because there is an element of trust as well. How is that alliance going to work?
With Russia?
Yeah, with Russia.
So I think this is based on, as they said, on the three principles, based on the three principles.
Okay.
They are free to choose any partner they think is useful for them.
Oh, right.
So it has to be based on a win-win situation.
Okay.
Not just with accumulate, on one side, asymmetrical, relationship. That will not work anymore.
Because there's a Russian presence in Burkina Faso.
Yes.
There is the Russian army.
That's right.
There as well.
Yes.
So that is a major worry again to the West.
Yes.
Again, it's all a question of, we used to be non-aligned as Africans. We don't get involved with the things, but we want to be in the middle.
But they need to consider that before even now, Burkina Faso, Niger and Mali were in cooperation with Russia, because most of the military equipment they have
from
been
Russia.
Acquired long time before, after the independence.
Yeah.
They acquired them from Russian, the USSR at that time.
Yeah.
So replacement, tile parts and many other, parts they're using, they have to, to get them from Russia.
So the French never gave weapons?
No. Imagine, that's what I was saying. Facing terrorism.
Yeah.
Empty-handed.
Yeah.
How can you win them? How can we win? How can you get rid of terrorism with empty-handed? Or if you need to acquire any military equipment, you have to go through a channel and get permission. While the terrorists are very well equipped.
Coming forward. So,
can you imagine? At a given time, there were the Bukinabi military were training with sticks,
You're joking?
Yeah, I'm not joking. It's true. It's true. Sticks instead of weapons, because they had, for example, I don't know, 10 weapons for, I don't know, 50 people.
Okay.
So come on.
And they have the French digging uranium and digging gold and diamond in their country, and they can't buy.
That's what was claimed by Mali, and I think even Niger. They said that they have, compelling evidence of what France was doing there. Yeah. For example, Mali said when France was in Kidal, they prevent them to enter there because they want to,
they are taking the resources.
So I think they help themselves as much as they can.
Yeah, they can. Yeah.
Until they were drove out.
Yeah. Because it's very interesting. It's very interesting, and the things that you learn over a period of time. And the French president has also said that at the moment there's a genuine worry that the West can't just leave Africa the way it is. Africa could easily collapse if it stops dealing with the West.
That's what they said, but Africa still standing. They would never imagine for them that Niger would be able even to pay the salaries of civil servants without development and without help of France or other countries. But reality is that the situation is still there.
The situation they have
stable
already,
and
they've already done.
It's difficult, but they're managing to
do that. To go back a bit, there is always that fear of an alliance. For example, the fear of alliance with the Chinese, for example, and the fear of the alliance with the Russians as well. There is that thing. How can this whole thing be put up together in such a way that you don't really get confused in terms of who is who? And how is that person going to help you? Because the self-interest of the West and obviously of the East comes in. The Chinese have got their interest.
Yes.
The Russians have got their interest.
Yes.
So how do we look at our interest to make sure that it remains our interest?
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
I think that it's vitally important for Africans to bear in mind there is no point of freeing themselves from one master
and then
going to another
the next
master.
one. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, all these countries are trying to protect the interests.
Exactly.
So be them, Chinese or Russia or France or whatever, they're after the interest. As they say, there is no friendship in politics. So we should know what we want from them.
Exactly, because we're seeing this in Malawi, and I think Malawi and Zimbabwe or Mozambique, where the Chinese are coming in.
Yes.
When they come in, there are lots and lots of Chinese who are coming. They are even in South Africa now. It's like China is looking for jobs for their own people. So they come in. In Malawi, we are even told some of them are in the police force, because at the end of the day, they have employment, they have invested in the country, so they come in with that kind of stuff. And I just want to see if Burkina Faso can draw the line on that issue as well.
No, I think they're aware of it, and I think Ibrahim Traoré made it very clear.
Yeah.
They have some mining
their percentages,
contracts,
their percentages.
So the percentage very clearly discussed, and they agreed on it. So it has to be a win-win situation. It will never be like
the French,
like before. They will not accept that one. So they are fully aware of it, because what is the point? Where will be the revolution if you go from a master to another one? So then you will not help the country at all.
One other thing which, of course, humanitarian observers have been observing with Burkina Faso at the moment is that the role of women in the country, especially in the three juntas, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, has, from what it was to now, it has really gone down. We're not seeing women appearing anywhere. Even in his cabinet, I don't think he has a single woman. So there is that element. I always try to see when women talk, because I talked to one of the women during the demonstrations, and they were saying that is what we're going to ask him to do, because it's not balancing what's going on. How do you see that?
Okay. I can give the example of Niger, because they work together in any case. So if you look at the cabinet, for example,
In Niger?
Yeah, in Niger we have women ministers.
Yeah, yeah.
We have friends or women, and even young people, less than 30 years in the cabinet. So no one has been excluded, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can tell you for sure, without the help of women, these three leaders will not
actually be there.
It will be impossible.
No, what most of them say is a common thing, which is, I think, because of religion and because of the African cultures, is that, okay, women have to be seen, but not to be heard. In other words, you don't put them at the front. It's a common structure when it comes to the Muslim faith.
But not when it comes to politics. Believe me. Yeah. Women are very vocal. We have even political party leaders, for example, women. So they very well involved in that. And just to give you an example of Niger, when they wanted France to go, to quit the country, women and the young people are the one who played a major role to get
different out.
Women. Yeah. Can you imagine? Very determined and politically engaged and very well aware of what's going on.
Okay.
And ask them to go.
Yeah. Even in Burkina Faso, because I think the reason why that comes up is because wherever you see him as a head of state, other than the pictures that appeared of him and his wife and kids, there wasn't any close woman somewhere in sight.
Yes, but that's what people portray.
Yeah.
So we need to differentiate between the reality and prejudices. Sometimes they want to portray that women are not respected in Africa and are neglected, or are even not taken into consideration or second
second-class citizens.
But in reality, it's not the case.
Yeah.
Ibrahim Traoré will not be what he is today without
women. Yes. Without
and
women.
I know what Bukinabi ladies in Mali and Niger what they're doing. They are the ones supporting. While, for example, in Niger, people were 24 hours staying in front of the military camps to get France out.
Okay.
Who was feeding them? Women. Women were feeding them. So everyone has contributed.
Okay, when we talk about the financial situation now in the country as a whole, the exchange rate, the finances that have been coming up. I know IMF and the World Bank has said, okay, he has money to pay the bills, he has money to do this, he has money to do quite a lot, but there is still a lot to be done. How is the financial situation going to be now in terms of the sales of things abroad? Because obviously he can't sell to France, he can't sell to anyone else, maybe other gold and diamond, but any other stuff. Does that help the country financially?
I think politics is something and finance is also different. So let's say take, for example, the example of ECOWAS countries. Ivory Coast, Ghana, Guinea.
The kind of trading within
they have to trade with each other. There is no, and these three countries are not out of UMOA. The financial, how do you call it, organization they all belong to. They're still working together. They're still working together. They're still trading with each other. Even if it's not like before, but still going on. And I can't see how they can stop it. Example, Nigeria, I was in Niger 3 weeks ago. A delegation from Nigerian business people came to Niger to negotiate. And they want to trade with these people, to the Niger government. Because they understood that, there is a wrong way they took. They have to cooperate, they have to work together. So between Niger and Benin, for instance, despite the fact that the border is still closed because of fear of interferences, but they still have to
trade is still going on. The trade is still going on.
It's going on. Maybe not like it used to be, but fact is that these countries have to work together. They're forced to live together, so they will find solutions because the politics do not affect people. ordinary people, they still trade. You know, they have parents everywhere.
So, intermarriages and so on. So it becomes very difficult. That's true. Because you can't prevent them. Even when you close the border, they'll still close the border.
True,
we had this in Kenya and Uganda and Tanzania during Amin's time.
Exactly.
The regime wasn't dealing with all those neighbors well. But you could find that people found a way of going through to Kenya or even in Tanzania and all these other neighboring countries. Because as far as they're concerned, in fact, a Kenyan and Ugandan will tell you, I don't know the border. There's no border there.
There's no border.
It's no borders. We speak Swahili, you just walk across. You know, I would see that as something that can easily be dealt with. The issue of a huge currency, which is something that he has discussed, forming an African currency. In fact, for the three countries, first of all, to form an a kind of a currency that could work. Even Kenya supported that. Do you see that economically coming up as a viable option?
I think it's vitally important to do it. Why? Because they want to be sovereign. They want to be autonomous.
Okay.
So that can only happen if they are also currency related freedom, if they have that autonomy as well. So this will affect definitely the currency and the finance part. So where is the sovereignty if you still deal or trade in the colonial currency? So it doesn't make sense at all. It will be a contradiction. So I think at a given time, at a given point, they will have to come together and create something. But it's not something which can be done immediately. Maybe they need to think of all the implications and all this.
The trading in gold, as Gaddafi had suggested years ago.
In Burkina Faso,
they are now trading in gold. They're using gold and diamond.
They're using gold as a reserve now.
So
I think the long-term goal is to trade in gold.
To trade with gold. You see that
because they nationalize a lot of mining.
Mining.
So they really
locally it will be easier for even a Ghanaian or Ugandan to travel to Burkina Faso and get gold and buy gold directly and take home and sell it rather than them selling the gold to the Western countries. So it will be easier to be done that way. That will welcome more millionaires and more Chinese.
They try. And recently, while I was there in Niger, for example, they signed an agreement where they will try to process gold on the
ground.
Which is good. And just to give you another example, in terms of oil, for example, they start trading. Niger is providing them with oil. Mali and Burkina Faso. Maybe it's not huge quantities, but
a kind of butter trade in a way. The butter trade.
So they're helping each other.
Okay. That looks like one of the best options around. The key thing is, how do you think his presidents could have an impact on Africa? Because already when presidents look at what he's doing and they look at themselves, and they look at, they look at themselves, they look at their countries, and there is always that. How do you see that impact? Because it's like you watching your neighbor, and he's doing so well, or he's so smart, or he's done this, or he's bought a car, or he's done this, and then suddenly you are saying, no, I don't need that car, I don't need this. How do you see that having an impact on the
I think the impact is already taking place.
It's already taken place.
It's already taken place because many African countries, if you take the young people, they want to be like him. They see in him an icon which is, promoting freedom. Even can you imagine? Even in America, he has supporters.
In America,
in America, even in this country, we saw some Jamaican people, supporting him. In France, some French, people supporting him because he's really doing well. And I think in the long run, it is even beneficial for the West to, to get those countries, developing on their own, to be independent.
Now he's as a role model to some other people. Do you think this could inspire other African countries, other African young men to sort of begin a similar kind of thing as him as a model?
Give you an example of right now the young people who took power in Senegal. They initially had those ideas, progressist ideas, to change things. although Senegal is completely different, the political context is different, context is different.
Yeah. The people, the region, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think in the long run, they may go in that direction.
Well, they may go the same direction as Burkina Faso. That's an inspiration. You look at it. From that
I know, because I work with many of them. Right now, as part of the diaspora, we have a Pan-African, organization where we meet up and discuss.
Here in the UK,
in the UK and everywhere in France, in America. So people are, all over the world, basically.
Okay. Now, internal deserted, non-believers, oppositions, and so on, is something that we've talked about.
Yes.
And like I asked you, when he sends them to the front line to fight because they've been opposing him and so on, is this the only way he handles that, or is there any other way?
I don't think he's still doing it the way he used to be, but those people are, when they have compelling evidence that someone is undermining, the interest of the country. So the best way to discipline them is to take them there to see, when they go to see how it is. It's not a game, it's not a play.
But isn't it against the law? Because if I'm against something...
But betray your country is even worse than killing, is the same as killing someone. Betraying the whole country. Or selling your country to foreign external forces. You understand? I'm not promoting that.
No. All I'm saying is that if I disagree with you, for example, we are in a disagreement here.
Yes.
And we don't believe in, it's a disagreement. I don't believe what you're doing is right. And you don't believe that what I'm doing is right, to disagree with you. Then you say, okay, you disagree with me, then come to the front line. I can understand the doctor's case, for example. When a doctor disagreed with him and it was well written, well documented, the doctor was commenting on where, So in the end, the doctor went on the front line because he said, okay, you come with us, go and train as as an army man, a military man, and go and fight the rebels if we are not doing a good job. I can understand that. But then you look at others who are not opposing the way the military is, but they're not opposing anything else, but somehow they find themselves at the front line as well.
It depends, honestly, on what the person has done. Because I know for fact, in Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, there have been demonstrations. People taking the street and demonstrating because they're opposed to some ideas.
Okay.
But they're not jailing them at all. No. But if you try to betray your country, that's something else.
How do you see the future then? The future?
I think the future is on both sides to understand that, we don't wish, to go from one master to another one. We want to be independent from anyone else and trying to find our way.
Okay.
And also to build a peaceful relationship with the West and all other partners. Because we are convinced that we are living in a multipolar world.
Okay.
So where you have diverse emerging countries, BRICS countries. We can trade off without compromising interest of Britain or France or whatever.
Okay.
So it's also high time for the West to understand that this asymmetrical relation cannot continue where you just exploit, dictate. You will not go because people have been they're becoming more sophisticated, more informed, more educated. Some practices they will never accept.
Social media is creating that. I just want to say thank you very much for coming here and telling us all about it.
Thank you so much. And a real pleasure to talk with you.
I do hope we'll be together again next week, at some point in the future, for another edition of Africa Speaks. And thank you very much for viewing us, and I do hope that you have a wonderful time wherever you are, and please take care of yourself. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
In global perspectives, immerse yourself in inspirational and engaging content that speaks to everyone. From captivating talk shows and thought-provoking documentaries to live events, sports, music, and lifestyle programming. Omega TV UK offers something for every taste and interest. We take pride in being a channel for everyone, emphasizing culturally rich content that celebrates the beauty, diversity, and heritage of Africa through the lens of the diaspora. Our mission is to promote inclusivity while delivering entertainment that resonates with a broad and dynamic audience. Stay tuned to Omega TV UK, the station known for its vibrant and culturally enriching content. Together, let's explore and celebrate the essence of Africa and its global influence. Omega TV UK, connecting cultures, inspiring minds. Omega TV UK, your global media channel. African stories and global